let's talk about our third conditional. So this one is a bit different. This refers to, it's all in the past. This third conditional is all happening in the past. It refers to an impossible condition in the past and its probable result in the past. So actually, we often use the third conditional to talk about things we regret. If I had done this, this would have been different. So third conditional, all talking about the past, an impossible condition in the past. These sentences are truly hypothetical and unreal because we can't change the past, right? In the second conditional, I'd say, oh, if I won the lottery, I would. That's hypothetical, but maybe one day I could win the lottery. Third conditional is totally unreal because it's all about the past and we cannot change the past. So the time is the past and the situation is hypothetical. So let's take a look at what this means. So here we're using past perfect. If, past perfect, and then a perfect conditional or perfect continuous conditional. So what does that look like? If this thing had happened, that thing would have happened. So all imagining, right? All hypothetical. Didn't happen, wish it did. For example, if it had rained, you would have gotten wet. Today's a sunny day, but if it had rained in the past, you would have gotten wet in the past, right? So these impossible things that would have, could have happened in the past. Next one. If you had worked harder, you would have passed the test. So here we see a commonly used way that the third conditional is used to talk about regret. If you had worked harder, you would have passed the test. If this past condition were true, this other thing also would have been true, but you didn't. You didn't work hard, you didn't pass the test. If you had worked harder, you would have passed the test. And notice here, yes, we're using perfect tense, which means we're using things like had happened, would have happened, have gotten, have passed. We're using our past participles here. All right, let's look at some more examples and then we'll take some questions. So here we go, third conditional examples. If I had worked harder, I would have gotten a promotion. So here are a different form of that passing the test question. If I had worked harder, I would have gotten a promotion. So this means I didn't get a promotion because I didn't work hard enough. So remember, third conditional, totally hypothetical, all in the past. If I had worked harder in the past, I would have gotten a promotion in the past. If I had known you were coming, I would have baked a cake. Maybe it's my friend's birthday and they come to my house unexpectedly and I say, oh, if I had known you were coming, I would have baked a cake. So I can't change this, right? This is totally hypothetical. I can't go back in time and bake a cake, but I can tell my friend, if I had known you were coming in the past, I would have baked a cake in the past. And here again, regret. Oh, I wish I would have known. I wish I could have done that. And here, oh, so sad. I would have been happy if you had called me on my birthday. So in this form, just like in our other forms, we can take our if clause and our main clause and switch them. So I could say, if you had called me on my birthday, I would have been happy. Or I would have been happy if you had called me on my birthday. Again, all in the past, right? Can't change it, all in the past. And just thinking what could have, would have happened. Last one. If you had told me you were free, I wouldn't have made other plans. So this is something I say to my husband very often. Sometimes he wants to do things together, but I've made other plans. So I say, if you had told me you were free and didn't have plans, I wouldn't have made other plans. So again, What could have been different in the past? So what about contractions? So if we look at a sentence, our first sentence here, if I had worked harder, I would have gotten a promotion. So I had and I would they both have the same contraction, I'd. So it can be a little confusing to read. So that with contractions, if I'd worked harder, I'd have gotten a promotion. One key trick here to know, does this mean would or had? Let's take a look at this first part. If I'd worked harder. So what sounds more correct? If I had worked harder or if I would worked harder? It would be if I had, right? When we have an ED, this is a past participle, then it must be had. If I had worked, if I had known, if you had told me. And here we see our past participles, right? Same, had called, had known. So if the next word is a past participle, we know it means have or had. And our second part, I'd have gotten a promotion. So what makes more sense? I would have gotten a promotion or I had have gotten a promotion? It'd be I would have, right? And often in these conditionals, we use the phrase I would have. So I'd have means I would have. Here's another example. If I'd known you were coming, I'd have baked a cake. Again, we know this first part with our if is had because we have our past participle known. If I had known, if I'd known, I'd have baked a cake. There again, I would have baked a cake. But actually, more often we say I would have. So we don't necessarily say, if we have the phrase I would have, we could say I'd have, but often we say I would have. So it's a little easier there. So let's review and then we'll take some questions. So zero conditional is what we use for general facts and truths. If this thing happens, that thing happens. If you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Simple truths, simple facts. First conditional is about a real, possible condition and a possible or probable result. If this thing happens, that thing will happen. For example, if I exercise, I will go out to eat with my friends later. If I do this, then that will happen. Second conditional is unlikely or hypothetical. For example, if this thing happened, that thing would happen. And our last one, our third conditional, is truly not possible. All happens in the past. If this thing had happened, that thing would have happened. If you had told me you were coming over, I would have made dinner. So this is a useful chart for remembering, and I hope that you guys learned a lot in this lesson today.